Eagles Talk A2D Radio. The bye week for the Eagles is over, and we're here to move on to the Browns. What are our expectations, guys? What are your expectations? Let us know. Eagles Talk. Let's go.
You love the Eagles, let me get a hell yeah! You love the Philadelphia Eagles, let me get a hell yeah! Philadelphia!
Eagles Talk A2D Radio is brought to you by Baggio's Bread, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, home of the best stuff. Breads, tomatoes, pies, yada, yada, yada. Make sure you mention A2D Radio for 10% off your in-store purchase. It's Chucks, PY, and back from his vacation in South Carolina, Mr. Brinks. Gentlemen, how are you today? What's going on?
I don't know. Not my confidence in the Eagles. I'll tell you that much right now. But we'll talk about it, I suppose, over the next hour.
I have nothing but confidence.
I as usual, I'm in like the middle of between that. I have confidence, but I won't say I have a lot. But we'll get into it. We'll talk about it. What are our expectations moving forward? What do we want to see fixed, and what do we expect out of this Browns matchup in Week 6? So let's talk about it. Our poll question: the Eagles will bounce back with a convincing victory over the Browns. Agree or disagree? Brinks, because you were out. Let's lead off with you. What do you think?
Convincing victory. I'm not confident that the Eagles can do anything convincing right now. They have 2 wins by the skin of their teeth, basically because of Saquon Barkley. You have a coach and quarterback that clearly do not get along. The offensive weapons look like they're on track to play, which should help Jalen Hurts, hopefully. For me, this week is all about the defense. Because if you can't rebound after a week off, after that awful performance against Tampa Bay, against, by the way, another coach and quarterback that don't get along, and Deshaun Watson is not good anymore, then it's time to hit the panic button on the defensive side of the ball. Like, the defense really needs to step up and show me something. But in terms, like, they should win. They're at home. They're off a bye. Their horses will be back. They should win. But, like, for me, it is convincing says to me, like, double digit, like, no doubt about it win. And I'm not there with this team against anybody in this league right now. It's just, hopefully they clean some stuff up over the bye. And they didn't, because last year we saw them go 10-1, and it was a flawed 10-1. There were some issues, but we kind of ignored it because they were winning games. I'm not doing that this year. My radar is raised with all these concerns because of last year. Whether that's fair or not, you can let us know in the chat. But I don't know. That's where I'm at. They have a lot to show me before I can sit here and pound the table for me to be confident about a convincing win over anybody in this league right now.
Got it. PY.
Yeah, I have no doubt that the Eagles are going to bounce back against the Browns. The Browns are hot garbage right now. The owners are forcing them to play Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is $300 million down the drain of just pure garbage. Like, he's just awful. Like, the team just looked way better under Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is lighting it up with the Colts right now, so that's fun. Like, there's nothing about this Browns team that makes you go like, oh, well, you know, maybe if they do this or that, like, we'd have some things to worry about. Like at the end of the day, like, they have some nice pieces on defense, but, like, I don't really think they have anything that's going to stop this offense. Like, maybe if we were down A.J. Brown, maybe if we were down Devontae Smith again, you could kind of scratch your head and maybe fathom whether or not that's a possibility. As long as Deshaun Watson is in at quarterback for the Browns, this should be a decisive win. Like, this should be a double-digit win. Like, this should be a sack-happy defensive victory, in my opinion, because their offensive line is atrocious. They get no separation. Nick Chubb coming back could be something, but what do you really expect much from him coming back from that injury?
That's Nick
Like,
Chubb. So
it is Nick Chubb. I love Nick Chubb. Like you're gonna get no issues from me on that point. But like, what exactly are you expecting from Nick Chubb back his first game? Like I'm not expecting like 150-yard rushing attack or anything like that. Like the Browns are a mess. This is your get back game. You're gonna have all your offensive pieces. There's no excuses. Beat the piss out of the Browns and let's move on.
I mean, Vegas agrees with you. The Eagles are open at
You're
9.
an 8.5-point favorite.
It's 9 right now on DraftKings.
There you go. They tell you everything you need to know.
I agree to the poll, but I don't feel very confident in my answer. I will give the we shouldn't be giving them the benefit of the doubt, but because the Browns are a mess I didn't say as well, because everything you said about the Browns is accurate, but I think you are also kind of neglecting or choosing to neglect how much of a mess we are at the moment too. So I say they're a mess as well. They can't get anything going. If Deshaun Watson is starting, that's a big plus from us. If Jameis Winston starts, I don't know about that. And I'm not a Jameis Winston fan, but you can't. Andy Dalton came in and in his first start rejuvenated the Panthers to a win. So I think Jameis Winston in his first start, if he would start, could do that for the Browns. I mean, they do have some talent, and plus Nick Chubb. I mean, yeah, you say, do you expect Nick Chubb to come in and rush for 150 yards against this defense? Yeah, I can see it happening because it's Nick Chubb. I don't care how bad his injury was last year. Like, he's that elite. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he is still an elite running back. And against this defense that didn't know how to stop the run, yeah, I'm going to say that I wouldn't be surprised at all if he goes off. So, that all being said, I think with AJ, Devontae, Lane coming back, I think with a week to make adjustments, especially Vic, as much as a lot of this fan base hates Vic right now, I still am giving Vic a vote of confidence just because he's a seasoned veteran defensive coordinator he's not like some schmuck, right? He's had success almost everywhere he's gone to. So I think he will make necessary adjustments. So I will give them benefit of the doubt. I think it could be a convincing win in terms of double digit, like you said, Brinks. I think we could get there because if this offense clicks like it did in week 1, when that was the only game we had all of our offensive starters, they could put up 30 plus points. So I think it's very possible. So I will agree to the poll. I don't feel confident though, because I could see an absolute stinker again. I could absolutely see them come out, no adjustments. Everyone looks rusty. There's like Nick messing up game management decisions again. So again, it is still anything could happen, but I will agree. The chat starting to chime in. We got Marshall saying, no doubt they will bounce back. It's such a strong statement. Yeah, it is a strong statement. That's why, see, with these polls, I have to drive different.
Yeah. You have to make it so
there's conversation, there's disagreement.
Yes.
So yeah, that's exactly why I worded it that way. Don says, what's up, fellas? And says, what's up to the chat. Martian Lynch says, what's the difference between Deshaun and Jalen? One's a predator, and one is
one stinks and one's a bad guy.
Yeah.
I can't even say Jalen stinks. Like, one is underperformed.
He's not good.
Stop. Like, he's under. You can say he's underperformed this year to start off the season, but like so has like 90% of the rest of the NFL. Like, quarterback wise,
this has been since week 10 last year that this guy has stunk.
I don't think
this season.
Did he stink, or was his defense giving up 40 points a game?
Well, I'm not gonna blame the defense.
How is that Jalen's
fault? We're gonna focus merely on Jalen, okay? Not the defense. Jalen himself, I say to say he has stunk, I think is strong. but he has underperformed. And he's been very disappointing at definitely in several games dating back to the collapse last year. That is fair to say. Saying he's stunk means like he's on Daniel Jones level or worse kind of quarterback. I would
Exactly.
not put him in that conversation.
I mean, don't both teams have 2 wins?
I don't wins and losses are not a QB
That's
stat.
that's what the whole thing is about.
Yeah, but
Wins
that's
and
talking about.
losses.
Yeah, but
Cool.
that's
Then Sam Darnold's the best quarterback
what
in the league.
team-
Then
That's what team
He's
is
one
about.
of them.
That's not
right now.
no, he's not. He's
For a
not. Come
quarterback.
on, like
Joe Burrow played probably one of the best games of his career against the Ravens this past week and lost. So again, I'm just saying wins and losses are not a QB stat. And
How many receivers did Jalen miss against Tampa?
that doesn't
what receivers? What receivers was he throwing to? Brinks? Who? You?
I mean, they're wide open guys. He had Saquon
Stop,
on the wheel.
stop,
He had Saquon
stop,
on the real
stop.
route.
he
You
did.
just
He
look
did. And he
ridiculous.
missed him.
Why do you
He
why
was-
do you sit here and defend him every single week when he hasn't
Why
been
do you
good
ignore
enough?
the facts. You're just a hater, bro. Like we get it. Like it's okay.
I
Like, you
want
have
him to
an
be
ag-
good. I'm an
you
Eagles
have an
fan.
agenda when it comes to Jalen. That's okay. But to say he was missing guys in Tampa, what guys? There wasn't nobody playing in Tampa. There was no Devontae. There was no AJ. Britton
I
Covey
know,
was hurt.
it's always excuse city for the guy. I get it. He makes $255 million. $255 million means at some point you have to elevate whoever it is in the football game is around you. And this guy doesn't do it ever.
But Brinks, I hear what you're saying because he's a franchise quarterback. He's getting paid like one, but
He's
at the
not
same
a
time,
franchise quarterback.
He is a franchise quarterback.
I am not going to. Daniel Jones got paid what he got paid. The using a quarterback's money is not necessarily a testament to what level of play. I mean, remember years ago, Matt Ryan set the record for being the highest paid quarterback in the league. Was anyone think he was the best quarterback in the league? Like it's good. The what the quarterbacks get paid is the market rate for what they're getting paid. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are the best. I think right now Joe Burrow is being paid the best quarterback in the league. Does anyone think that he's better than Patrick Mahomes? No, not. Tom Brady for several years was never ever close to being the highest paid quarterback in the league.
Nope.
So
That's why he won all the time.
Again, just going back to my point, I think that I think there's a middle ground between the both of you that there has to be reached. Briggs, I think you're being way too harsh and saying he stinks.
I mean,
PY,
Matt Ryan won an MVP, Chucks. MVP.
PY, I think you do tend to
Holds a
lean
lot
toward
of weight.
having
An MVP
Eagles
award
cover
holds a
classes,
lot of
so-
weight.
So I think that again, middle ground here. We can be absolutely critical of Jalen, absolutely, and he has had really bad moments this season. He's also had really good moments this season. Okay, he's underperformed compared to expectations. Okay, but he hasn't stunk. There's a difference. There's a difference between the two. Let me continue with the chat. SJM says, "What up, fam? As of today, I have to disagree to the poll. Eagles will win. However, it will be close as a result of the Eagles' continued self-inflicted gunshot wounds." I mean that's fair for him to say. I don't think the PY like you can't just say no. I kind of had similar context in my point, and so like I think it's you can't just. I think it's unfair to you act like it's a guarantee that they're going to go out and blow the socks off of the Cleveland Browns.
They should. They are playing that badly.
Based on what track record?
Based
so far,
on what?
Based on what?
How atrocious the Browns look right now.
Well, we've been so bad too.
But do you know what they're talking about on A2D Cleveland Browns talk right now? Okay, we're playing the Eagles. They have just as many problems as us. They don't have a good coaching staff right now. They don't have a good quarterback play right now. Really, the only thing they have is a tailback, which is basically what all we have. They're like spitting mirror images of each other.
We are a poorly coached team, and that can really hinder us, as we've seen. That's the point. There's no guarantee with Nick Sirianni being potentially the guy that's going to hold this team back for a lot of this year. Like, there's no. I don't know how you can go into a game and say, I guarantee they're going to blow the socks off of the Cleveland Browns. Out of any team. I don't care how bad. The Giants just beat the Seahawks. We've seen the Cardinals just beat the Niners. Like, so far this year, if anything, it's kind of shown that there are no dominant teams in the league, except for maybe the Vikings, maybe, but they barely lost. They barely won over the Jets. Like it's any given Sunday, PY. So for you to be that confident, I think that's what I'm saying. That's where I'm saying, like, I think you have the Eagles color glasses on a little too much.
If they were playing a different team, I would probably agree with you. They're just the Browns are just so inept right now.
Let's bring in, it's a 15-minute mark, so let's bring in our great friend, Mr. Les Bowen for Bowen on the Birds. Les, how are you today?
Great. How are you guys?
We're doing good. Right. It's been a very heated first quarter of the show. So let's get to your answer for the poll question. The Eagles will bounce back with a convincing victory over the Browns. Agree or disagree? What do you think?
I think there's a real good chance they will. I'll agree, I guess. I'm not I wouldn't bet my house on it, but looking at the Browns, they're giving up 141 yards a game on the ground, first of all. So even if all the Eagles can do is hand the ball to Saquon Barkley, I think they ought to be in pretty good shape. And apparently they're going to have A.J. Brown back and Devontae Smith, and, that ought to make some difference. I don't agree with Rob that I don't think – as disappointing as Jalen Hurts has been at times this season, if you've watched any of Deshaun Watson, he's the worst quarterback in the league right now. By much worse than anything. Yeah. Jalen's completing 68% of his passes. He is missing some guys, and he is turning the ball over some, more than we would like. But he's not having, he's not the worst quarterback in the league yet. Let's hope he doesn't get there. But right now, Watson is that. So, and that's kind of karma, I think. We were talking about, you guys were talking a few minutes ago about that Tampa game and Jalen's performance. And I was watching, before I came on here, I was watching Kansas City's first drive against the Saints, first scoring drive.
Yep.
They ran the ball and they threw 4 times to tight ends and scored a touchdown. And I go back to the way the Eagles approached that Tampa Bay game. As Peter was saying, they kept throwing. They wanted to just pretend that they had Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, and that they were named Johnny Wilson and John Ross. And it was just such a stupid game plan. It was to go out and throw on first down every downfield. It just didn't make any sense. And so anyway. That was just something I noticed tonight. Like this is what you do when you don't have your wide receivers, is you come up with something that makes sense. You just don't pretend that you have wide receivers, And I don't know. I was watching a good bit of that game. I don't know if they've had a wide receiver catch a pass yet.
Yeah, to your point, Les, and I think I said this last week, but I'll say it because Brinks is here now. I would have kind of understood more the game plan to still kind of throw it if they did some creative things to scheme these guys open, but they didn't. Everything was so vanilla. Everything looked like it was last year. And I think that was a big talking point about with a lot of people. I know that Fred Duffy hammered home that point.
The way that they lost the motion component over the last 2 games clearly has to do with the absence of Devontae and AJ. But I'm astounded by that, because while you can't make the backup wide receivers talented, you can certainly teach them your damn offense. If they can't run the motion, what are you doing? What did you do all training camp? That's just, if that's if that really is why they didn't do it, I have no words. I mean, that's incompetence on the coaching staff.
Les and gang, that brings me to my first point that I wanted to bring up with Les is, who is calling the offensive plays? Because dollars to donuts, I think Nick Sirianni went into that meeting with Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, said whatever he had to say to keep his job. Yeah, hire whatever coordinators you want. I'll be the CEO, head coach. And now it seems like this is like last season all over again. Kellen Moore's been a top 5
Yeah.
motion-based offense. Every year he's been in a coordinator. Dallas with the Chargers, and now he comes here, and they're bottom 5 again like they were last year. Who's in charge of the Philadelphia Eagles offense?
Well, I assume Moore is, and I assume we would hear from him or from people that something would filter out if he weren't running most of the plays. Nick did open up a can of worms by saying that he calls plays from time to time when he was trying to take blame for that stupid 4th down thing 2 weeks ago. I do think it has to do with the personnel because they were doing it the first 2 games. And I don't think Nick suddenly grabbed control of the offense away after 2 weeks. I don't think that's the answer, that Moore isn't calling the plays, but I don't know for sure. And, if the season implodes, that'll be something that'll be looked at. We didn't really know what the deal was last season. It turned out from the Tim McManus ESPN story that Brian Johnson's ideas weren't being considered at all. And he was just sort of sitting there watching, calling Nick's plays and wishing he was somewhere else, which he is now. I don't know.
But if he's meddling, either do it or don't. Don't halfway do it and half don't. And this play really worked. That was my play. That play stunk. It didn't work. That was Kellen's play. I just see this being a huge, as you put it, can of worms moving forward, especially if things don't go well on Sunday. They feel very disorganized. It feels like a very disorganized football team right now, from top to bottom, which is deeply concerning.
Martian did have a question for you. He says, why is it that the motion guy is jogging to a spot? Isn't the point of motion to disguise the offense and possibly catch the defense lacking?
No, the point of the motion is to see if somebody moves with him, to see what adjustments the defense makes when you go in motion, and that should help you decipher what the defense is doing. It's not really to disguise what you're doing so much. I mean, I guess that could be one component of it, but the primary reason is to get the defense to show you something while you're motioning. Is I understand it, not really.
Yeah, I think a lot of it starts there. Less what you said, and that's the first advantage of it is to get that indicator right, and hence why there's some quarterbacks like Peyton Manning before and Aaron Rodgers even now who don't like motion because it changes it'll tell them something, but it also changes the look
what
of
they're seeing.
Yeah, what they're seeing. So it's not always motion isn't some automatic cure. I think for Martian, to what your question is. It depends. There are different types of motion too. Sometimes teams will use it to get leverage for their offensive skill players on certain things. So you remember in the Super Bowl, I hate to bring it up. Remember the Chiefs, how they scored 2 touchdowns against us using that return motion, right? That's to get leverage against a defender if it's man to man, so that when they get out into that route into the flat, their man is kind of breaking down and trying to get play catch up, right? So if that's what it is you're also using it to get leverage. So it's just because you see someone jogging doesn't mean that it's a bad motion. It's different types of motion that you're trying to do. So not every motion is one and the same. He also asked a follow-up question to you, Les. He says, do you think Nick constantly sticking up for his players when they are clearly in the wrong has contributed to him losing the locker room and the team's respect?
Well, I'm going to have to go the other way again, Martian. I think that's what players like about a coach is when he sticks up for them and doesn't call them out publicly. I've never heard of a player not respecting that or not liking that, as long as the corrections are being made in private. Now, if he's not holding them to any kind of standard, in the room, that would be very bad, but we don't have any indication of that. I think he has the team's respect for the guys that like his personality. I think there are a lot of them that do. I think there are other guys like Jalen Hurts who really aren't about that, out of control, brash personality, and they probably aren't real high on Nick. But yeah, I don't think sticking up for his players is anything you would put on the negative side of the ledger there.
Yeah,
Les, can you pinpoint like where it's clearly a fractured relationship for whatever reason between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni.
Mm-hmm.
They clearly don't get along. Can you pinpoint from your observations a certain instance, a play, a game, a scenario, anything that caused this to go south? So I'm convinced.
Yeah, I would just point to last season and how, Nick really got over the top, last year. That was when you really noticed it more than the year of the Super Bowl, really, at Kansas City, where he's yelling at the fans and stuff. I think when things don't go well, that's when you start these little things that irritate you about someone that you might be willing to put aside suddenly become very important. And I think when things started not going so well, I think this was probably something that Jalen wasn't real thrilled with all along, and it became a bigger sticking point. And the whole Brian Johnson thing, Brian Johnson was somebody Jalen liked and respected. He'd been his quarterback coach. He'd known him all his life. Again, I go back to the ESPN Tim McManus story. Brian Johnson wasn't being listened to and was made the scapegoat for Nick. And I infer that Jalen really didn't like that at all when it was happening, and probably doesn't like it now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's, I'm on the outside looking in, so I have no inside information, but just to be my guess, I don't think it's one exact moment that made it sour the way it is. I think it's been a gradual thing, and to Tim McMahon's story, and a lot of reports that have come in even before that, but Tim did a great job like summarizing in the detail. I think it's like, for one, I think that Hurts realizes Nick isn't capable, like in terms of offensively, knowing how to run.
Players respect you when you're helping them get better. Correct. When they see that what you want them to do is worth something, that that it works.
Yep.
What we saw last year was that what Nick wanted to do, he had this disastrous idea of not changing anything from 2022 and just doing everything they were doing a little bit better, refining their technique, as if what they were doing was so unstoppable that, that if they just did it with the right level of detail and nuance, that no one would ever stop them. Well, teams stopped them dead, and he had no answer for that. And I think, if you have a boss and your business has a problem and your boss can't figure out a solution to the problem, then that's going to affect how you look at him, I think.
Yep. Then Martian did have one more question here. Les, gun to your head, faith in humanity on the line. Are you hiring Bill Belichick as the head coach?
I would not, but the way this season is going, first of all, he's way too old. The Patriots, those last 2 or 3 years were really concerning in terms of where he is and where the rest of the league is. But the way this season is going, particularly with the defense, it kind of almost plays into hiring Bill Belichick, because what I hoped was going to happen with the defense was that Fangio would be like a Belichick, that they had so many just stupid problems last year, playing things that didn't work, confusion, square pegs in round holes. I thought Fangio would sort all that out, and he hasn't. Belichick probably would. So, from that standpoint, I could see it. But from all other standpoints, no, I really don't see that. I think if something happens, it'll be what Jeffrey usually does, which is to look for somebody, for better or worse, innovator, young guy. That's his jam. I just don't see Belichick fitting here. But hey, what I can't say for sure that it wouldn't happen. Like I said, the season is sort of playing into it in a way that I never anticipated when the season started.
Yeah.
Well, two things that the Eagles are consistently is not prepared for football games under Nick Sirianni. And we just talked about for 10 minutes about who's in charge of this team. Two things that would never happen if Bill Belichick were the coach of this team is they would never be unprepared, and there would never, ever be a shadow of a doubt or even a question about who's in charge.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't know. I don't sure, but one, and I know Les, you could probably harp on this. I don't know if Laurie and Howie would want someone kind of with that personality to be at a head coaching position, and two, piggybacking off of what you said, Les, with Bill, I wouldn't want him because what the past few years since Tom Brady, even when Tom toward the end of Tom's tenure in New England, what has Bill Belichick shown that he could do well to keep up with the modern NFL? And lastly, I think Bill Belichick is phenomenal in his role now in the media. He does a great job. So I want him to stay there, but I don't think Bill coming here fixes anything. And plus,
Distraction.
Laurie has never. I don't think he has ever hired a defensive coach. So
never.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, and the whole thing about retread coaches, I haven't looked this up in many years, but there used to be a stat about the guys who won Super Bowls with two different teams. Who has done it? I can't, off the top of my head. I used to know this, but it's a very, very short list. I think there's
very short list.
I think somebody said Shula, but that wasn't correct because the Colts won it the year after Shula left. But my point is, trying to get somebody else's Super Bowl winning coach doesn't make your team the Super Bowl winner. I mean, it just hasn't worked that way for anyone ever. And teams have tried it, with Holmgren, in Cleveland. It's been tried. It hasn't ever worked.
Yeah. Ryan Swope does have a good question, and I want to add to this question, Les, because I want your input. It's something that I have had stuck with me since I think the 2020 season.
Right.
So why, when the running backs are going so well, where they do it a lot on one drive, they will then turn away from it. Next drive, it'll be 6-7 passes in a row. Back in 2020, there was that report that Laurie came down and was upset after a victory where we ran the ball a lot.
Yeah, that was at Lambeau. I remember that very well.
Yeah. So, based on your history with the team, Les, do you have any insight? Is there truth to Laurie will never want to be a run first team? Is he adamant to being a pass first team where he will
Well, he wants to be where what's working for the teams that win a lot is. Now, this season, running seems to be working pretty well for a lot of teams. So I don't know, man. I don't think he's stupid. I think, he would change his ideas if the data changed, but he looks at data. That game in Lambeau was it's kind of gotten overblown, I think. But what was reported was that he asked Doug Peterson, why did you run the ball so much? And Doug took that very poorly because he thought he had performed an absolute miracle. At that point, the Packers, the Aaron Rodgers-led Packers were a great team, especially at Lambeau. And to go in there and win, this was in the post-Super Bowl, Carson Wentz's declining kind of era. And Wentz played a tremendous game that game. But he didn't throw the ball a whole lot, but he threw it well when he did throw it and didn't turn the ball over, and they won the game. And just barely, by the skin of their teeth. But they had guys getting hurt.
That was a Jordan Howard game.
Stuff happened, but they won the game. Yep. And Doug didn't think anybody should ask him anything after that. But, as far as the question that Ryan asks, I'll say one thing. I don't know this for sure, but, sometimes you do stuff to set up other stuff. Maybe they think, okay, we ran it. They're moving people up now. They're crowding the box. So now we throw it. That would make sense to me, but I don't know. I can't really specifically speak to that. but that's the only reason I could think of.
Yeah, it's to your question, Ryan. Like it is puzzling because over the years we've seen where,
Mhm.
and again, to reiterate, I'm not someone who's like, oh, it has to be a 50-50 run split. Like I
Right.
don't believe in that, but there are several
And
seasons.
there are situations where you can't run. I mean, if they put enough
Yeah.
people up there, you can't run. You don't have
No,
enough
no.
blockers. It's
Okay.
not going to work.
Yeah.
You can't just say we're a good run blocking team and we're going to run.
Oh,
Come help.
Les.
Unless you're going to run the tush push every play. That's the only way.
Les, I looked it up. It says Bill Parcells was the last one.
To win with two teams.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Giants, and then Patriots.
Yeah,
That's
He
crazy.
didn't win with
He's
the
last one.
Patriots.
he didn't win
Right.
with the Patriots.
Because I looked it up as well, and no coach has done it.
There we go.
Multiple coaches. It said right here, I have it. Multiple coaches have done it with two different quarterbacks, which Bill Parcells has done.
Oh, okay. So even quarterbacks. Okay.
Right,
So,
but
you be better with your research.
so that's what you hire
I looked it up. That's what I
Holmgren, or
said.
you hire Sean Payton,
Can't
or
really
you
know.
hire, it hasn't been proven that ever works.
Yeah. SJM does have another question. A lot of questions for Les. Keep them coming, guys. He asks, aside from Fangio's previous stints in other cities, what specifically with the Eagles is he coaching / calling well and coaching / calling not so well? Do you believe the issues stem from personnel?
Yes.
Well, these are deep questions for an old retired man like myself. But what he did in the New Orleans game, he called perfectly what they needed to do against that offense. He knew exactly how to, get the 5 or 6 man line and how to shut down Derek Carr very, very well. The rest of this has gone pretty badly, I think. They don't seem to be able to run their nickel at all without leaving people wide open all over the field. Excuse me, I'm fighting off a cold here.
Same.
Personnel, there are some personnel issues on that defense. The edge rush in particular, I really would love to know what the conversations were like with Vic Fangio when they made the Bryce Huff decision.
Yeah.
Because I've heard Brian Baldinger say that Huff is not an outside linebacker, that you just can't play him as an outside linebacker. He's strictly a 4-3 defensive end, and you have to just let him go get the quarterback, and that's, and make up for it, for what he doesn't do. And they're trying to make him into something else, and it's not going well so far. So I don't know what Vic thought when they said Bryce Huff. But if he said he can get this done, then he might have been wrong about that. Obviously the linebacking makes a difference in the defenses. The Fangio style defenses do need elite linebacking. Where he has been and had good defenses, he has had elite linebacking, and there's no way around that. And it doesn't mean you have to draft a linebacker in the first round. Almost nobody does that, but you have to have good players. Fred Warner, 3rd round pick, still he's Fred Warner. You have to get good linebacking. You have to get an edge rush, and you have to be able to get this secondary to play cohesively, which is what there's talent there in that secondary, right? I mean, but they just don't seem to be able to fit together. Or with a secondary, I know a number of defensive backs have talked to me about this over the years. Everybody has to be comfortable with the guy next to them and to know instinctively in this situation, he's going to do X. If you're the one safety and he's the other safety, you have to be all on the same, like a shared brain kind of thing, like you can't have guys that are looking at each other like, oh, are you good? Maybe I should, no, and corners are the same way. And I just don't see any kind of flow, any kind of real meshing. And I'm not saying this very well, but I just don't see it working together back there very well at all.
Yeah, it's and this goes like, I know there are a lot of Eagles fans who are already done with Fangio. I know my one friend here who commented huge against Fangio. He says Fangio sucks and system sucks. System is not meant for Philadelphia. Buddy Ryan,
Yeah.
JJ Sports. So like I hear his point, and let me say this:
Buddy Ryan would give up 80 points a game in today's NFL.
Jesus,
You
like,
can't do that.
All his
Let-
players would be suspended
let
and
me-
fined until they were
let me
broke.
say this to his point and to all the other doubters of not
They
doubt. I don't want
fight
to
for him though.
to when it comes to Fangio, like, are there other defensive coordinators I personally would have rather had than Fangio? Yes, absolutely. I would have. There are several other schemes I prefer over this scheme. However, I think this scheme gets a bad rap because this city, to his point, is they love the attacking style of defense, and this is not that scheme.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that this scheme is horrible. If there was, and Fran Duffy made this point before on a podcast, and I loved it. If there was one scheme that was the best scheme out of any other scheme, then everybody would be doing it. Every
Right.
scheme has their flaws and has their strengths. I think the flaw with Fangio right now, well, first of all, let me say, if there's anyone that's going to get the most out of this type of scheme, it's going to be obviously Fangio, because he knows how to coach the details. And I think the proof is in the pudding in his history. Like, you look at where he's been, every team has had an adjustment period
Yeah.
to begin, right?
That's
At
a
least-
really good point, Chuck.
At least
I was going to say that you can't be
Yeah.
done with the guy after 4 games.
Exactly. I think that the problem is the way that the game has now shifted, and offenses have now shifted. They have now started to learn better ways to attack what he likes to do with middle field open defenses and cover 4, which is what Fangio loves to do. So offenses now are adjusting to that with the run game, with the dinking and dunking. So it's up to Fangio. Can he now counter that with his own counterpunch? That's the big question, because that's what Fangio is going to have to do. If he doesn't do it, he's not going to have success here. He's not going to be staying long here. But I will give him benefit of the doubt because he's a smart coach who's been doing it for a long time. I think he has it in him to present that counterpunch.
Well, all schemes that get a big reputation start with scheme being married to personnel. You know, the Seattle defense that everybody loved 10 years ago was because they had those guys like Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor, and they pretty much ignored pass interference rules, and they had an interior line that would kill people, and that all that stuff. They had great linebacking, Bobby Wagner and those guys. If you put enough good players out there, you can. That scheme worked great, and once they didn't have those guys, the scheme didn't work great. And I really think we're kind of in that little bit of a problem here with this. Is the D line? I've gotten out over my skis a little bit on the D tackles, but I am disappointed. I don't think Jalen Carter does some good things, but there's no reason why he can't be a game wrecker every week. To me, I don't care how fast the quarterback's throwing. Throw the guard into the quarterback as he's backing up. Do something. And Jordan Davis, he's Broderick Bunkley so far to me.
Yeah, he's been disappointing. Yep.
You would have been you could have drafted a guy in the 3rd round who would do what he does.
Yes. Yeah.
They need to be better. They might need better players, to be a really good defense. And that's on Howie, but it's not gonna.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more topic.
I also don't think that a team captain and veteran in Darius Slay going on Micah Parsons' podcast during the week is doing a damn thing for team chemistry. That's absolutely unacceptable by Darius Slay. That's a total joke. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
that's
that
awful.
topic.
I don't know if you talked about it last week.
We did briefly, but
that really pissed me off.
I know it pissed off a lot of people. I'd cut him. I will. I'm not going to.
That's why you're not a GM.
No.
I will say. I will.
That's why you're not a GM.
Let's. I don't want to spend too much on it, but I will say this. I didn't like the timing of him going on the podcast. I thought it was horrible timing, and I didn't like. I thought the more egregious thing was him posting his stats on Twitter after the loss. That was the more egregious thing. But he did delete and he did apologize. What I will say is, in general, I do not care about players going on other players' podcasts. It's a different time, a different age, and I think people who are against Slay are just nitpicking and looking for something. And anyone saying that he should be stripped of captaincy doesn't know how captaincy works. It's not us to decide. It's not coaches to decide. It's decided by the players. And if the players have an issue with Slay, they will address it. But
As far as I know, he does a very good job of working with younger players.
Yes, yeah.
He works with younger players. He helps them develop. I think he's a responsible guy. You don't ever hear about him getting in any trouble off the field. Yep. His only problem is I don't think he's ever had a thought that hasn't come straight out of his mouth.
Yes, I agree.
And his wife is the same way.
Yeah, I agree.
And which
he
is
doesn't think before he speaks.
Yeah, that's not a leader. That's not a leader.
But Brinks,
I don't care what he does with the young players. That's all fine and good. The guy's a stone jerk off, and he's not good enough to get away with that bullshit anymore. He's not.
In your opinion.
In your opinion, okay. But the players.
Rick, I think, are you actually older than me? Because you sound.
I'm an absolute Neanderthal. Absolute Neanderthal with my sports takes, and I don't care.
The players see it differently. They vote.
They really do. It's
and I will say this:
free agency and everything. They don't. Micah Parsons might be playing here in 2 years. Slay might be playing in Dallas in 2 years. They don't care.
I think people need to realize that there are different ways to lead. Okay, and people they see Slay. They don't. It's not their mold of leader, so they're against it. But as the players have shown, they like his type of leadership. That's all that matters.
The funniest thing to me is every year when I was in the locker room, they'd get to a rivalry game. Sometimes usually it was Dallas. Sometimes it would be one of the other division teams. And, reporters would go up to some newcomer on the team, especially if the guy was from Texas. I'd get a real kick out of it. They'd be like, oh, you understand how he hate the Cowboys, right? Oh, yeah. I hate the Cowboys. No, he doesn't hate the Cowboys. It's or the Commanders or whatever. No, they just want to win the games. They're not fans. It's their job.
Clearly, a little passion, little self-awareness from a team captain would be nice.
Yeah, it was a bad thing
when
to do.
Things aren't going well.
I agree with you that it was a stupid thing to do.
The timing,
I don't think it speaks to his character.
But he's yucking it up. He's roasting his teammate with our division rival, CJ Gardner-Johnson.
He didn't roast the teammate, though. Listen
he
to what he
didn't do
said.
that. Come on.
He didn't roast CJ. He defended CJ. If you actually listen to the whole clip.
And if there's one guy on that team that's hard to defend, it would be CJ.
He stinks.
Yeah, which is hard to talk to defend. So,
Les, that was one of my questions I had for you. So, one of the big chances we had in free agency was going out and getting Xavier McKinley, he is balling right now in Green Bay.
Yeah.
But he was a little bit out of our price range. Do you think Howie Roseman, where we stand right now? Yeah. Do you think he's regretting that choice instead of bringing back CJ?
Well, if CJ doesn't play any better than this, he might very well regret. The other thing is, though, that Sidney Brown is going to be back soon.
He is.
And they make these decisions about who to pay, not just with a 1-year window. They look at, okay, what do we expect the situation to be 2 years out, 3 years out? And clearly they expect Sidney Brown to be a leader in their secondary, and they expect Blankenship to be contributing. And, I just don't think they felt – I don't know if CJ is going to be here – past this year.
He might not be. Yeah, he might not be. Yeah. They could have gotten a better safety, no doubt about it. They could have gotten a better edge rusher. They could have given New England something for Judon. There are a lot of things they could have done, and I'm kind of waiting for the trade deadline to see if they can do something that will, because I really think they have a personnel problem on defense. I don't think they have a personnel problem offensively. I think those are other kinds of problems, but I think defensively they have a personnel problem.
Yes, I agree. They don't have a coaching problem on defense. Vic is fine. When the defensive line actually lives up to their draft stock, they look good.
Yeah.
I think it's a mix of both. I'm not going to point it to one person. I think it's a mix of everyone. Les, do you have time for one more hot topic?
Absolutely, sure.
All right, so I Pete Evans, as we he wasn't able to be on this week, but he does. We've been talking in the chat about potential head coaching or next head coach, and he says no, they are in position where the roster is ready to win now. So if they fire Nick, they don't have the luxury to hire a new proven coach, in my opinion. They need someone that stabilizes the room and control the culture. They don't have a choice, Chucks, because the core of this roster is already win now. If they don't look at someone like Vrabel or established retread, it's a damning nail. I don't agree with Pete though. Like I agree in the sense that they are win now during the win now window, right? This year, next year, maybe the year after. I don't think hiring a retread is the way. I don't.
You don't hire a coach to rebuild. You hire a general manager to rebuild. So any coach you hire is to win now, pretty much. I don't think anybody hires a coach thinking it's not one of those sports. Maybe sometimes like in baseball, you want to see a guy develop prospects or something, but that's not the way the NFL works at all. I just don't. It's a good thought, Pete, but I don't see that as a rationale for hiring a retread coach. And Vrabel, to me, I watched that team some last year. I was like, I don't know. He's a fiery guy. He's an interesting guy, smart guy, but maybe it wasn't his fault. Maybe they didn't have the personnel, but I just didn't see that much from him myself.
I think he's a good motivator. I don't know if he has the chops to schematically bring a team where it needs to be. You know what I mean? I think that stuff, it all depends on his coordinators that he brings in. But I like him as a leader. Peter does say Flores is above all else, and I would love Flores. Again, it's will Lurie hire a defensive coach?
I just don't see it.
Problem. I don't see it.
I doubt it. It would have to be the guy that he hires, the defensive coach that he hires, would have to have an ironclad commitment from a really good, universally acclaimed offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Who is somebody who's not in a position to leave after 1 year if things go well. So it would have to be like a veteran offensive coordinator who's already been a head coach or something, who just don't. I don't know who that would be.
I don't think that would exist because I don't think like any type of offensive coordinator that's a hot name and up and coming riser like it's one like all the established offensive minds right now. I don't know if they have what it takes to keep up with this game right now. Like the stuff that these offensive guys like Ben Johnson and Clint Kubiak and Bobby Slovic last year, like the stuff that they're doing is cutting edge. Do you really have to be up with the times to really keep up, right? So
an older guy might not even have that.
Right, might not even have that. So like if you hire a young guy, there's no way you can keep them from seeking a head coaching job elsewhere. And I think that's the problem is I think ideally for me, you have to, whoever your next head coach is, I think it's going to be a huge factor for them to be an offensive play caller. You have to have someone who is going to call plays, at least to an extent, and design their scheme, have a really good scheme around them. That way, no matter which offensive coordinator leaves, your quarterback isn't learning a new offensive system every single year again. It has to be established.
Yeah.
There's two types of coaches that seem to work these days. It's the kick you in the ass, intense guy like a Dan Campbell that is going to be prepared and be tough and gritty, or one of these nerds like McDaniel or McVay.
Well, McDaniel will be available after this year.
You might be right. I mean, I don't know if I want him as a head coach, but I would hire him to call.
It'd be so much fun to have
plays.
that kind of interview, though.
But Stefanski, O'Connell, I do think Cleveland Stefanski, I think he's a good coach. He just he's got an even worse quarterback than Nick Sirianni.
He's got Deshaun Watson. That's a problem.
You have D'Amico Ryans, Dan Campbell. You have that class of coaches.
D'Amico would have been a wonderful. I know they don't hire defensive coaches, but D'Amico was here, and I would have loved to talk about a guy that you could have for 15 years, and so I think that maybe I'm going to be wrong about that, but that's just how I see him. I think that would have been a great way to go, but it didn't work out that way. My prediction, though, is that they get relatively straightened out. and that they don't want to change coaches and have another play caller next year and all that crap again. I mean, I think if they could even get into the playoffs at this point, and if the flaws in the defense aren't fixed, but the offense looks good, I think they'll just, try to figure it out again next offseason. I don't think they're the team that we thought they were maybe going into the season. And, as long as they don't have a losing season and miss the playoffs, I think probably Nick survives, depending on what happens.
Which
2
would be
weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I wouldn't have said that. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I would have said they have to win like 11, 12 games, win a playoff game, and maybe do more than that. That would be a reasonable expectation for this team. At this point, I don't know what a reasonable expectation. I think a winning season is a reasonable expectation and a playoff berth. But beyond that, right now with this defense, I don't know.
I don't know either.
Nope.
I don't know. We shall see starting next week, Les. But once again, thank you for coming on so much. We love having your insight and chopping it up with you every week. And maybe, hopefully, we are right and that the Eagles do have a victory against the Browns. But till then, we'll see you next week, Les. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Les.
See you, Les.
Bye, Les.
Les Bowen on the Birds. One of our favorite times of the show is to have Les on. So we thank him always for coming on. And again, we are brought to you by Baggio's Bread. 10% off your in-store purchase when you mention A2D. And then also make sure you hit the like, hit the subscribe, all that jazz. You want to be able to keep following us. So we got to keep the conversation going. We still have a lot of stuff going here in the chat. But one other thing, Martian's question here. I know we ran out of time with Les, but I didn't want to address it. He asked, who's more head coach ready, Ben Johnson or Kellen Moore? I'm going to say, you guys chime in too. I think Ben Johnson is.
Yeah, it's Ben Johnson without question.
The only reason Ben Johnson doesn't have a job is because he chose to be the offensive coordinator at Detroit again.
Yeah, he didn't want.
He was all wrapped up for Washington, from what I understand,
and he didn't want to go. He was like, I like it with the Lions more than Washington. So I don't blame him. Brian Pupper with the super chat. Thank you, Brian. He said, I'm sorry, fellas, I don't see it. From the coach to the lack of efforts from the players, this team is very unlikable. A lot of bad vibes. Jeez, it sounds like we need to get some of these fans back in.
Yeah, the team has to get the fans back on. Like, the team has to do well on Sunday.
The team has to.
It's not our job just to blindly follow this team.
All this negativity is so tired.
Yeah, but like, even if they deliver on Sunday and they win, they could win by 20. There'll be certain people who, because they don't like the coach or they don't like the quarterback, like, oh, this doesn't show anything. It doesn't matter. Ha ha ha.
Well,
I'm like, obviously, it may not matter in the long run, but like, if your agenda is there, it doesn't matter what happens. Like, you're still going to be annoyed and upset.
That's fair. I think Pete had a comment earlier, and it's a very fair point. He said, even if we do have a convincing win against the Browns, it won't matter. So I think it's to some extent that is fair. Like,
I don't agree with that.
The convincing, well, what I think his point is, having a convincing win against the Browns is one thing. You've got to show that that's not a blip in the radar. It's one game against a bad team. Yeah, having a convincing win would be great, but you've got to do more than that. I interpret it as that's what Pete's point was. Like, you've got to do more than that to win everybody back. You can't just have a convincing win and it already mean the season's turned around. So,
but you can't do more than that if you don't start with that.
No, and that's fine. Yeah, no, that's completely fair.
So I don't agree with Pete on that. I hate this quarterback and I hate this head coach. But if they go out Sunday and do good, I'll come on this here next Monday and say they did good. I have no problem with that. None. I hope it happens.
Pete, if you're still listening, clarify what you meant by that comment.
I think you interpreted
I think you were saying like it's going to take more, but just clarify. Yeah, and Mr. Wing, you're right. The media coverage has been super negative for 2 weeks, and I get it. I think when it comes to extremes, it's a little nauseating, but I think it is completely fair to be very skeptical about this team. And like I when I complain about the negativity, it's just because like I hate being in a bad mood. I hate being I hate knowing that our team is bad. That's why I hate the negativity. But I think the objective and fair criticism to this team is completely fair. Like, go ahead, be critical because they haven't lived up to expectations. So, Brian, I don't think any of us are homers. Well, PY is. PY is a homer. We can acknowledge that. So PY is the one homer on this show, but everyone else,
I mean, I have my homer tendencies, but I also have no problem if it's garbage. I have no problem saying it's garbage. Like
sometimes.
Also, Brian, you're starting to get into the hater comment, right? You're starting to lean into the haterade right now.
It takes a lot for you to be critical.
No, it really doesn't. It really does. I'm not you. Not everything sucks. Not everything stinks.
But
not everything is
you
garbage.
Just don't, everything doesn't stink. Everything doesn't garbage. What do I have?
Every word out of your mouth is stinks.
That's not true.
It's 100% true.
About this football team this year, yes, because they've been garbage.
Screen shows me how right I am.
They don't. They have no leader. They have a head coach who's inept.
Yeah, I just say
quarterback who can't read defenses. They have a quarterback who can't take a sip of Gatorade without turning the football over. They have a defense that's soft, and they're a poorly constructed, skill player, top-heavy roster, which is not how you win in the NFL.
Is that so?
Yes, it's
sour grapes. It's nothing but sour grapes with him.
All right, yeah.
How is it sour grapes? What
about
violence? What, tell me where I'm wrong. Do you think Nick Sirianni's done a good job this year, PY?
I don't think he's done a great job. I don't think he's done the best job. But
he does not have the respect of his $255 million quarterback. That's a huge problem.
You guarantee that? You
I guarantee that. Yes.
You can guarantee that?
It's clear as day.
PY,
it's clear as day.
In your opinion?
I don't think it's guaranteed, but I think everyone knows it leans that way.
It's clear as day, Chuck. Come on, man.
I think it's pretty. Again, I won't say guaranteed, but it's pretty kind of almost as obvious as anything that he doesn't have much respect. And I'll say this: he doesn't have much respect from as a head coach. I think he's fine with Nick Sirianni as a person. I think it's the evidence has shown he doesn't think Nick is a capable head coach. And I knew I was waiting for it, but you got interrupted. But you were about to say, I don't think Nick has done a great job, but I don't think he's been bad. He's been bad, PY. He's been bad. And I think this is another thing where it takes a lot for you to be critical. Nick has been bad.
It's 4 weeks in. Like if we're in week 12 and we're still like this, then yeah, he's done a shit job.
No, but we're talking about now. We're talking about
right now. This is what we do. We have a podcast every week. Show whatever you want to call it. What we do.
Oh my God! Thank you, Brinks. I'm so happy you taught me these things.
PY, calm down. So
right now.
I'm
shocked. I didn't know we were doing that.
I don't agree with Brinks to say that Jalen Hurts sucks. If there is one person on this team that we can agree sucks, I think it's been Nick Sirianni. I think Nick Sirianni is the one person we can look at and be like, yeah, you've done a really, really bad job so far. They won against New Orleans in spite of Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
And Nick has done nothing even outside of that game to show that he's been managing games and having this team prepared. Nothing. And I was the one, you know this since last year, I was the one saying I can understand giving him another year to give it a shot. I was with it before this year being, okay, maybe he can get back to being a good game manager. I've been giving him chances, and maybe he still can be, but 4 games in, there is no sugarcoating it. Nick has been bad. And there's no but. There's no, oh, he hasn't been great, but no, there's no but, BY. He's been bad.
He also had. I'm willing to give if he has all of his players and Devontae Smith and all these guys, and they're still awful. Then yeah, that's indicative of Nick. Like Nick is 100% the victim here. Like he is 100% the problem.
I don't.
He's
I
100%
don't
the
think
problem right now.
I don't think using AJ Brown, the absence or the return of AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, is good enough reason to excuse him from bad coaching. Py, like, it's bad coaching and bad game management decisions are what they are, regardless of who's
Who
on the
says so?
field. All right,
They
yeah.
lost against Tampa
Ryan, you
last
sound
Sunday
like
because
an
they were
old.
not
You sound like an.
prepared. They were not prepared to play football last Sunday.
Cool.
Period.
And that goes around on everyone, not just Nick Sirianni. That goes on Kellen
He's the
Moore.
CEO head
We're
coach.
talking, yeah, but Py, we're talking just about Nick Sirianni right now. We're talking, and there are a lot of we've been
Where should I
penalized.
point the finger about the team not being prepared?
We've
last
been
Sunday?
penalized a lot so far. Who does that usually fall on? It falls on the coach. It falls on the coach. If the you have to be able to prepare. Like, Nick already doesn't have, but based on what we know, okay, he's not in charge of the offense. He's not in
Nope.
charge of the defense. He doesn't have many responsibilities right now. Okay, he's
Nope.
setting the culture. He's managing the team overall. He's in charge of game management, so on and so forth. If you're not going to manage a game well, what are you doing? Okay,
How
that's the thing.
about Isaiah Rodgers being a gunner? Now, I get it. Isaiah Rodgers never been a gunner before, and you have to put guys in that spot because of how many guys you can sleep. But he throws the guy into I forget who was returning the punts because Covey's hurt last Sunday. DeJean was back there. Okay, I mean, Isaiah Rodgers is the gunner. He just takes the Tampa guy and throws him into Cooper DeJean. And they asked Isaiah Rodgers after the game, like, what were you doing? He's like, I thought it would be a penalty. I didn't know it was going to be a penalty on me. Like, I thought it was going to be a penalty on them. Like, as the CEO head coach, you don't go to the special teams coordinator and be like, hey, we got Isaiah out there. He's never been gunner before. Why don't you give him a 10-minute tutorial and teach him, like, what the heck to do, and more importantly, what not to do when playing on special teams. That's a direct indictment of a head coach who doesn't know what he's doing and is in over his head and doesn't have his football team prepared. That's clear as day. And if you want to sit up here and be an apologist for Jalen and Nick and all these other clowns that are playing football every Sunday for this team right now, you go right ahead. You sound stupid. It sounds like you're on their payroll and they pay your rent or something. I don't know, like I don't know what you're watching. This team
That's what I
stinks
say
right
about you
now.
every week, Brink. So it must be
This team-
business
this
as
team-
usual, bro.
This team, like, they're not good right now. I hope they get good, but there's no evidence that they're
Do
good.
you?
Yes, I absolutely 100%
Are you sure?
do.
Because then you can't cry and whine and bitch and moan.
I'm a bigger Philadelphia sports fan than anybody at this platform combined. I hope they win every game by 50,000 points and win every championship
Jerking yourself
imaginable.
up there, pal.
I'm not gonna follow this football team off the Walt Whitman Bridge because I live in Philadelphia and I have 15 Eagles jerseys in my closet. That's not how it works. If they want praise from me, they need to go out there and earn it. Period. And they haven't. They haven't done a damn thing to have my respect of this team as a fan. Not one damn thing, except for Saquon Barkley, who's a legend.
That's
A legend.
I think
Okay.
again, Brick, I hear you. I think you go a little too far sometimes, but I hear you on that. And PY, again, same with you. You go a little too far one way sometimes, and you got to calm down. Both of you got to calm down here a little bit. It's getting a little out of hand, but just we're all passionate about this Eagles team. Okay, we're all passionate about this Eagles team, and it's frustrating. And I think PY, I don't think there's anything wrong with either of us or anyone criticizing Nick Sirianni, and
Just
you know,
fine.
no, but you were the one that was ready to make excuses. I have to call you out on that. I called out Brink.
I have no issue being called out. I don't care.
Out Brinks for being too harsh on Hurts. I've got to call you out on being too easy on Nick Sirianni. So
Sure, that's not a problem.
5 minutes left. We got about roughly 5 minutes left till we
good.
get out of here. Let's do this. let's each go. Let's have. Let me bring some positivity before we sign off.
Are we
Okay.
allowed to do that?
I'm gonna go to each of you. I'll start with Brinks and then PY and then myself. Name one player that you think is going to improve significantly moving forward for the rest of the season. So Brinks, you start.
Improve. So like Saquon, Devontae, and AJ, they're already studs.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I
So
think I think if Nick Sirianni now I suspect that Nick Sirianni is meddling in the offensive game plans. That's my suspicion.
okay.
We'll find out if I'm right because I don't think Nick meddled in the offensive game plan against the Saints, and Dallas Goedert had a huge game.
Okay.
So I think that if Nick Sirianni wants to save his job and be the CEO coach like he promised everyone he was going to be in the offseason, and he lets Kellen Moore 100% do his thing, I think Dallas Goedert can be a way bigger part of the game than he is
Okay.
right now.
Yeah. So Dallas Goedert, good one. That's a good one. That's a very good one. PY.
I want to see more from Cooper DeJean. I'm so excited for him. Like I want to see so much more for him because the potential for this kid is just sky high. Like you could just tell like he wants to hit people. He wants to be on that field. He wants to play every snap. And I just think the more you get him on the field and the more you get him acclimated and the more chances you give him, you're not going to regret it.
Good one. Good one. There's several that I could go off of. And I wanted to include player coach too. Okay, so players or coach. So I was debating Quinion because I think Quinion's gonna get a few pick sixes the rest of the year. It's inevitable. I wanted to go. Dallas Goedert was another really good one. I think Zach Bond is going to continue to get better. So that's another one. But what I think the one person I think the most I think will be improved, I think will be Kellen Moore. I think we're going to start to see Kellen Moore's offense more and more as the season goes on. I think we will. I'm very worried that Nick is going to have still too much influence on some of this play calling, but if he doesn't, hopefully he doesn't. I think that Kellen Moore is going to really show some really good things, and especially with Lane, Devontae, and AJ coming back. Especially Devontae coming back. I think he's gonna kill it from the slot, just like he did in week 1. So I'm very excited for that. So that's my person. I think I got Kellen Moore. Brian Pumper, he says get Dean off the field. I don't think so. I wouldn't do that. I think
been good.
I think
Okay.
Dean is solid. Like he's like, okay, yeah, he's not good in coverage. And I said this before the year. You've got to kind of just accept that. You got to live with the fact that he's not going to be a good coverage linebacker. But when he has as he's shown in like 2 of the 4 games, when he's not thinking too much, he actually is really good triggering downhill against the run, attacking behind the line of scrimmage. Like he's good at those roles. He just sometimes he's gotten in the way of himself. But I think that also this could be his first full year as a starter. Hopefully he doesn't get hurt, he doesn't get injured. But I think he's been fine, and I think he's going to continue to get better. I wouldn't bench him. Plus, I said this last week. If you're gonna bench Nakobe Dean, who are you going to bench him for? It's not going to be Devin White because he's not going to fix any of the problems that you have with Dean. He has the same issues as Dean, as Dean Nakobe Dean. The only player on this team is maybe Trotter, but he might not be ready. And I said before, maybe Ben Van Sumeren because he's athletic and could be okay in coverage, maybe. But that's it. Like, so I don't think there's much options to sitting Dean. So I think I know a lot of people are mad at Dean because they see him 2 out of the 4 games haven't been good, and he's not good in coverage. But he still does certain things well. You just have to use him the right way. So I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. He said White is faster and bigger. Okay, but he also misses a lot more tackles. He's also just as bad in coverage, if not worse. Okay, so if you're trying to bench Dean to fix stuff, Devin White is not the answer. And the
If
coach,
Devin White was good, he'd be playing. The fact that he's not playing says one of two things to me. Either A, he flat out sucks and he's not good in practice, or two, there's things behind the scenes that
we don't know. Yeah.
that we don't know, and
Yeah,
most
we-
likely is a bad teammate. And it's starting to look like it's those two things
yeah,
as
and
a whole.
he would have
Like
been
when he
playing with
did that tweet from I
Yes,
don't know if he
exactly.
was at the game.
Oh, yeah.
Vontae David.
Levante
Like,
David, yeah.
if you don't want to cut Darius Slay for his bullshit, then cut him for that.
Devin White.
Do
yeah,
something.
I'm
Do
not.
something.
I don't think Devin White this year is this year's Rashad Penny. There's no reason to be pounding the table for Devin White. There's no reason. Just he is what he is. He got benched and he lost his starting job to a rookie his last year in Tampa for a reason. Like stop being so hyped up about big names, and kind of look at what the tape shows you. So
I mean, what's her face? Dean and Bond have been good.
Yep.
yeah, together they've been fine. They
been a good
haven't
duo.
been perfect, but I don't think there's anything overly concerning. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they're not superstars. I admit that. I don't think any of us are saying they're star linebacker play. Like, they're not Patrick Queen. They're not Roquan Smith. They're certainly not Fred Warner. They're not stars, but they've been fine. You know, and it's 4 games in. I think they've shown that they've been fine. Don asks questions, fellas. Do the Eagles still win the division? I still have them winning the division.
Yeah, I say him.
Yeah.
The Commanders are looking good right now, but they also haven't really played anyone good. So
Defenses are going to start catching up to them.
yeah. Don't they play the Ravens next week?
They are at Baltimore next week. Yes.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, let me see how you do against Lamar.
Yeah,
and
let's
company.
say Baltimore.
I will answer the division question after I see the Browns game.
Okay, fair.
I,
Yeah. So, yeah, Brian, I'm actually watching the tape that is actually on there. So
Yeah, we watch the tape that is available every week.
Pro, I'm subscribed. I'm watching.
If there's one person you're gonna try and talk tape to, it sure as hell isn't the guy up there to my left. What are you doing? Like,
well, I mean, he's about the other two.
Yeah, it's. I mean, CJ's been bad.
Nobody watches tape like Chuck's though. That's my point. Like,
yeah,
Maddox. One person.
Maddox has been really bad 2 of the games. He's been good the other 2 of the games. So
CJ has given up a touchdown in every game.
CJ's been really bad in coverage. He's been decent against the run, but really bad in coverage. So yeah, I'm not denying that they've been bad. But are you, again, Brian? You. Here's the thing that I'm before we sign off. I'll say this. Here's the thing: you want to get them off the field. What is your answer to put in? Like, what is your answer? Like, Sidney Brown is just starting to practice. The practice window just started. So, like, I'm Sidney Brown's my guy, but he might not be ready for a little bit. Like, it might take several weeks for Sidney Brown to be ready. So, if you want him to eventually take over CJ Gardner's spot, sure, but it's not going to be week 6. And I already answered your Nakobe Dean thing. And Maddox, yeah, we were probably going to start to see Cooper DeJean take over Maddox's spot, which is fine. I am all for that. Take Maddox's spot. I think all of us have wanted to see that since he was drafted. So I want to see him in the slot. We are in agreement there. So again, you have to provide legitimate solutions and not just say, "Oh, get this guy off the field." Because he's playing poorly. What that's half of the problem, or that's half of the thing, the conversation. You have to say who legitimately is going to take their spot and play better. This is not always grass isn't always.
Hell ain't Devin White.
It's not going to be Devin White. It's not going to be Devin White. Heated show, guys. A very heated show, but a good show. It got a lot of negativity out in the air. The bye week has come and gone. We've got that. So now it gets real for the Eagles. Now it gets really real for the Eagles. They've got to show it to us against the Browns, and hopefully they do. To all of us in the chat, guys in the chat, you guys have been awesome. Thank you for chiming in. Thank you for your questions for Les. They were awesome, and hopefully next week we have some positive things to say about the Eagles. But until then, make sure you check out the rest of the shows on ATU Radio. Again, we are brought to you by Bosnia's Bread. make sure you mention A2D Radio for 10% off your in-store purchase. For myself, for Brinks, and for PY, and the rest of us at A2D, we thank you. Good night. Go Birds. Peace out, guys.